Hey everyone, welcome to Life Beyond Sunday podcast. I'm actually really excited today because we have two very special guests. Well, one special guest and one other guest. I'm kidding. We're here welcoming Shad and Tanya, who I have gotten to know and love dearly, and they have such a cool story. So thank you guys for joining us. I love you too, Shad. It was just a moment.
Shots fired. They will be returned.
I clearly have a favorite, but it's not against you.
It's great to have favorites.
Yes, it is. Shad, Tanya, thank you so much for joining us. So Shad, tell us a little bit about what you do here at Coastal.
Yeah. So I serve Coastal primarily as our connections director at the church. So I serve our groups and our next steps process. I'm also filling in our youth ministry right now as well while we're going through some transitions there. So I serve the church in a lot of different ways, but that's the two main ways.
Perfect. Yeah. And Tanya, you serve Shad.
I do. I do. Basically, whatever he's needing, I'm there ready to help. And
yeah.
So we're going to ask you guys a few questions before we get into like the nitty gritty. So a couple like speed round, just get to know you guys. Okay. So how long you been married?
16 years.
I was going to hope that you guys answered at the same time because it would have been really funny if you were like 16 and he was like 12.
Is it 16?
Correction. We've been married for 15 years.
I was like, wait, I think it's 16 this year.
Oh, and you didn't correct
I'm already thinking about the
I was going
future.
to let her have it, but then you elaborated on it.
You're
so I
a
figured,
good man.
Yeah. I was like, wow.
Mao and I are proud. We would have been like fighting at the moment. We would have been like, no, that's the
November
wrong
16, 2008. So 16 years will be this November.
I was already looking forward to November coming up. So
Feels like 50, but
There you go. How many kids?
3 kids. I got that right.
that is true.
Yes,
That is
okay.
true.
Ages.
All right. So Ireland is 12, Evelyn is 8, and Jonah is 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where were you guys born?
Ooh, I was born in Brooksville, Florida, about 30 minutes north of Tampa.
And I was born in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where'd you guys meet?
Church, youth group.
Tampa?
My hometown. Oh,
Okay.
man, I moved the mic. I'm
It's
so sorry.
okay. We'll get yelled at, but we're all right to keep going.
That
Okay. They
cool?
gave us an okay. Okay. Enneagram number.
Enneagram number. I'm a 2, the helper.
Ah.
And I'm the peacemaker 9.
How is that dynamic at home? Works well?
I create peace in the home.
Yeah, she does. She brings a lot of balance, and then, I can be a 3. So I wing to a 3, so I can be very competitive. But for the most part, I just really want to help people. People think I'm more competitive than what I actually am.
Got it.
Yeah.
You're a people person.
I am.
Meanwhile, I'm like, it's every man for himself out here, and I'm just gonna go.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we're gonna discuss a couple, we're gonna have you pick your favorites, okay? So we're gonna go with music, movies, or TV shows. If you have to sit down and watch one or listen to one, what are you gonna pick? Free time. Movie? You're gonna watch a movie? You're gonna watch a TV show? Or you're gonna listen to music?
Movies.
Movies.
Okay. Like rom-coms?
No. Deep thinker, plot twist, suspense. Give me something that makes you think.
Yeah, we spend about 2 hours trying to find the movie that we're going to watch.
And then by the time you turn it on, you fall asleep?
I'm asleep while
She
he
does.
stays through.
I cannot fall. If I'm
Stays
watching a movie,
committed.
I'm watching a movie.
There you go. I'm Tanya in the relationship. And Mauricio's like, are you up? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I am.
Fully committed.
I'm just
Fully
picturing
committed.
it in my mind.
Yes. Okay. If you had to pick a type, brunette, blonde, or ginger?
like
Brunette?
like a child?
It's just like a trick
No,
question.
exactly. You're supposed to answer ginger.
Ginger, of course.
Yes, guys. If you guys aren't watching video, Shad is a redhead, and Tanya is a brunette. I feel like that one was easy. You couldn't answer anything else.
Yeah.
You had to go with that one, right?
Name your
Yes.
second favorite redheaded male.
There is none.
She loves redheads.
She loves you, Shad, and
Yeah.
that's what matters.
Personality.
All right. And Tanya, your background is you were born in Tampa, but your parents are
Cuban.
Cuban
100%
right?
Cuban.
So habla español.
Un poquito.
There you go. Okay. All right. So that's kind of just to get a little bit of your background. But what's really interesting and kind of what I want to dive into is you guys have a very interesting story in leadership and in church and specifically towards transitions. So tell me a little bit just about how you went into ministry. I know you guys moved around a little bit. So just a quick, we started off in Tampa, we moved here, and this is kind of, how that worked.
Go for it, babe.
Well, I'll start off, I guess. So for me, I always kind of knew that I was going to marry someone that was going to be in ministry. I don't know. That was already like inside, like I'm going to find the guy that wants to, if it's Africa, if it's wherever, we're going to serve and be in ministry. But no. So for us, when we got married, we knew that we were called to ministry. We were just waiting for the right opportunity and time. And it was pretty funny because back then too, we were just anxious, not anxious, but more just excited for like the first position to become available, right? So when we took our first position, it was in Kansas. We got the phone call and we packed up. We had our 8-month-old. We were so excited. We got there and we're like, we didn't even ask how much we were gonna be getting paid. Like,
forgot to ask.
we forgot to ask. Thankfully, the church did have like a small little studio thing attached to the church. So we stood there.
Were you getting paid? I think
With a very small salary involved in that as well.
So they basically called you to be a volunteer with a small stipend?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We lived in the back of the church. They had a little bedroom that they built for interns, and that's where we lived.
But for us, like we were so excited. Like we're like, I don't care how much we get paid. Like as long as like we just survive, like we're good.
Tanya, you were a good woman. This is God. I mean, this is what, like, that's why I'm not in ministry, because it would have been, I would have been like, where am I living?
Yeah.
Is there room for my clothes? I'm shallow.
Yeah.
So
Tanya
good
loves
for you.
free is Tanya's favorite word. So when they said we could live for free in the back of the church, she was like, I'm in.
Yeah, I'm
Free
done.
sounds
I'm good.
wonderful.
It was pretty funny though, because the place that we were staying in the back of the church, it was like one room, but it had two toilets in the same bathroom and 2 showers.
It was built for like multiple interns to stay there, but they never put stalls up. So there was just toilets next to each other.
So you moved to middle of Kansas.
Yeah. Yeah.
What city?
So we were in Paola, Kansas.
Okay.
Yep. Small little town. Picture Gilmore Girls. That's basically the town that we were in.
That's cute.
Yeah, it was cute. It
Okay.
was so cute.
And what was the position?
I got paid to do kids ministry and I got to do youth ministry.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did both.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how long were you guys there?
About 5 years. 5 years we were in Kansas, and then we felt transition was coming for us for like the first real time while we were in ministry. And I was going through the man who raised me, Brian, my stepfather. He was battling cancer, and we ended up losing him in January of the year that we transitioned. And we were like, where does God want us next? We just didn't feel like we were supposed to be there anymore. Do we go home to Florida? And at that same time, our lead pastor came to us, took us out to lunch, and was like, hey, I'm actually moving, right? I'm going to Chicago in 6 months, and I would like for you to come with me. So we already felt transition coming, and then he felt transition as well and invited us to join him. And so we took some time to pray and consider, and we ended up leaving Paola, Kansas, to go to Joliet, Illinois, which is right outside of Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that for you? Were you in a place with 2 toilets and 2 showers?
No, where were we at then?
We had a little rental house
did.
that we stayed in, and we ended up buying a house there. So we bought a house while we were there, and there I got to do youth ministry, eventually overall at the Next Generation Ministries, from babies all the way through young adults, and then teaching pastor as well.
Were you involved in the church?
Yes.
Okay.
I was. I feel like we were always involved.
Yeah, we've been a tag team the whole way.
Okay.
So like back a little bit. So we've always worked together since I was 15 and he was 16. So whether it was like
in
working
her dad's Cuban restaurant, I was a
Cuban
dishwasher.
restaurant server, he was a dish boy, and
Dish
so
boy. Dish man.
Dish
You
man.
were 16, Shad. I mean,
you're still a
dish
boy.
sounds about accurate.
But we always served together. So whether it was the salary was on him, I was still serving alongside him with ministry. And at that point, I was a children's pastor.
Yeah, so she was my children's
In
pastor
Illinois.
at that church.
And
so
he
she
was now
on
the youth
staff.
pastor.
Youth, Next Gen, yeah.
And when you guys were outside Chicago, you had 2 kids at this point?
So Evelyn was 3 weeks old.
Okay.
When we got on the plane, she was 3 weeks old.
Yeah, I actually did not know this. So little thing, you cannot fly a baby unless it's 3 weeks old. Like if it's 2 weeks and 6 days, you can't get on the airplane. And I didn't know that. So I got in by
Right
the
when
grace.
Risky business.
Risky business. But yeah,
business,
so Evelyn was 3 weeks old and Ireland was what, 4.5?
Yep. So 4 years apart. Yep.
Okay. Yep. And then, so you guys were there for how long in Chicago?
We were there for about 3 years. We were there. It was a bigger church, bigger experience, a lot more responsibility, larger audience, bigger budget. So it was a growing experience for us, right? We went from small town of 8,000 people to a city with a population of a few 100,000, right? So it was just a bigger experience for us. And the church grew. We saw great things happen there. And then a few years into our journey there, I just felt God just kind of speaking to me that God was calling me to start a church. And I didn't know what that meant or what that would really look like. And because we didn't really come from a church planting style church, it was old church that had been around for 100 years. And so new churches was a foreign concept to me. But for some reason, I felt that God had that for us, and that started a journey of us trying to figure out like what that would look like for us. And we ended up finding the ARC, the Association of Related Churches, and partnering with them. And and then a year later, we ended up packing up and moving again back home to Tampa to start a church.
Okay. I'm going to pause right here and come back and pick this up. But up until that point, what was kind of the biggest challenge that you guys faced? I'm somebody, I don't like change. Yeah. I'm like very much into a routine. I'm so type A. It's annoying. And I can't imagine picking up, moving around with kids, and it might be my personality. But what was the biggest challenge? I mean, especially Tanya, I feel like I know you guys are a tag team, but you're right. Shad is feeling these calls and you're following. What's kind of what's going on? You have a 3-week-old baby. You don't have family around. Yeah. So what's kind of the biggest challenge that you faced during these transitions, and how did you stay focused, I guess, on the mission?
So the first one, when we were in Kansas to Illinois, we did go back home for the funeral for his dad, and we strongly thought that was our time to go back home. And I was feeling excited getting on the plane as to thinking, okay, home, we're going to go back home. This is a time that we need to be there. And it's crazy because as much as I loved being there and my family's there, I mean, everyone's there, I had this sickening feeling in my stomach, like this is not the right time. And so that was the first time I've actually experienced that before, knowing almost nauseous, we're not supposed to be here. And so I remember us leaving back from Florida back to Kansas confused, and that's when we still knew there was a transition happening. So for me, that was hard because I was thinking Florida was going to be where we were going to be going. And then when we went to Illinois, and then God was calling us back home, I was excited because my family's there, right? This is where I want it to be, just it wasn't the right timing before. So
I mean, we had a lot of conversations about, contentment and being content with where you are, and being okay with what your role is and not feeling like you have to go to do a new thing, and fighting, maybe a predisposition that I might have to love to experience new things, which Tanya's not as much wired towards. I am. And so how much of it is emotions, right? Or is it just unmet expectations where you are right now? Or is it truly that you feel like God is saying this? Yeah. And we took about 6 months and had a lot of hard conversations, because Tanya is safety driven. She likes security and consistency, and she wanted to vet me, I think, really in that time. This was a big move for us. We had a good salary now. We had a house, right? We were secure. And so to do that was very hard. And I know for her, it was especially hard to come to peace. And I think that ultimately, that's where we've always gone back to. Yeah. And when Tanya says the sickening feeling, I think that's just the removal of the peace that you have and your spirit, that you are where God wants you to be. And, you don't really know that you don't have it until you don't have it. Yeah. And when it's gone, that it's gone. And I think that for her, that was, that sign for her that, hey, it was time for transition.
And I think too, I signed up for the call of ministry, and whatever that looked like I was ready for it, So I knew that there would be times that we would have to move, or, there might be transition happening, and I was ready to. And I feel like there was never a time that I was angry or upset whenever we had a transition. But more of just okay, I trust you. This is, we're going to have to do this if this is where the piece is. And yeah.
And what did you guys do? So now you leave Chicago, you move to Tampa to start up a church. do you have all 3 of your kids at this point?
No.
Or no? Okay, so it's just the 2 girls, and you guys come in and you move. What is that experience like to start a church?
Terrifying. I mean,
What year was this?
So we moved in 2018. When we planted September 15th, 2019.
Okay.
So we moved about a year ahead to, get things ready, to start recruiting people, to start raising money, to work on venues and things like that. I mean, it is literally launching a brand from the ground up. So it is a lot of groundwork and building. And so there were things that I didn't know that were a part of that. And so it was quite a bit to do
I
that.
think there's a huge difference between like absorbing another church and like there's already something established and then starting from scratch, And so that I think that's a good word. Terrifying, excited, anxious, nervous, sleepless nights, you name it.
Yeah. And were you working, or were you guys both working towards the?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I told him, I said, in this season, you need to get this going. I'm going to pick up a job and I'm going to take care of the bills financially so that we can get this going. And so that's what we did. So I worked while he was.
What were you doing?
I was an insurance agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So no, I thought maybe you were a dish girl again, and
No.
we were gonna come full circle. No, I mean,
She was the top agent in the state of Florida her first month. She did a great job.
Wow, Tanya, look at you.
Yeah.
Tanya's handy. She's guys, Tanya's quick. I'm gonna tell a story. Actually, I gotta tell a story.
Okay, go ahead.
Tanya, I was like, Tanya, if there was ever a time where I realized you were Cuban, it was this moment right
gosh.
now. Do you know what story
Yes.
I'm gonna tell? Okay, so can I share it?
Yeah.
Okay. So Tanya's she's quick on her feet. She's super smart. She's got a little bit of sass. I love her. I'm a fan. But one day, so our kids do dance together, and one day, she picks up my oldest daughter and takes her home, and she's like, I'll take her to dance with my other daughter. And I was like, okay, awesome. So in ballet, you have to wear a bun maker, right? So I go to pick up my, I was like, oh, I forgot the bun maker. I'm like, whatever. Okay. She'll go in a ponytail. So I go pick up Alana, and she's in this perfect bun. And I'm just like, man, Tanya probably had an extra bun maker at home, thank God for Tanya. So I get home and and Alana looks at me and she's like, you have to undo my hair. And I was like, why? And she's like, wait till you see what's in it. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So when I go to look and I undo the hair, it's a sock. She made a perfect bun maker with a sock. And I was like, I've been spending money.
Why? When you have a sock?
I've been buying bun makers, and Tanya uses an old sock, and it looks better.
It was clean though.
Not an old, but a one. And I was like, Tanya, how did you not teach me this in life? And that just goes to show how handy and savvy your wife is. Yeah. And it's so I'm not surprised. She's the top insurance agent. She's a hustler.
She did wonderful. She crushed it for 6 months. She did that. She was the top sales agent. She made a lot of money for us to be able to have a nest egg to be able to get through the next season. And then 6 months before launch, she made the decision to step away from that she now realized I needed her to make this happen. Yeah. And she partnered with me to get the church up and running, getting our 501c3, getting the money, raising the people, getting the website up and running, so many things. You do it all. It's literally from the complete ground up. So it was a lot of work.
Okay. Yeah. And then what you guys start up this church?
Yeah.
How does that go?
Yeah, so we like I said, we partnered with the Ark, so they have a model for the way you launch a church, and so it was very helpful, right? I knew nothing. I just knew how to be a pastor. I didn't know how to start a church, and so they were a great help to us. So we launched Imagine Church on September 15th, 2019. We launched with 256 people at our very first service. We had managed to find and recruit 100 Dream Team members.
Wow.
When we launched with their families. And so we had a great team.
And these are people that we just met at the coffee shop. Yeah. We've never met them from Adam, and we're like, hey,
got coffee with all of them at a local coffee shop and just sold the vision. And they committed their lives for 6 months before we even had a church to build and prepare and get ready. Taco Tuesdays, invite your friends that might want to be a part of it. And so
Shad, would you say that probably 90, if not maybe 95% of them were hey, they were church hurt and they were looking for, a lot of them had their story.
Ditch,
yeah.
Last attempt.
This is my
maybe a new
attempt,
church will be different. And so it was a very unique, season. It was totally different. I mean, and so we launched with 256 people. We had all
No
these
one's
dream
counting.
team members. What's that?
No one's counting.
No one's counting. Trust me, when you're church planning, you are counting
You are counting everything. You're
over
like,
and
cars,
over
bicycles
again.
count.
Count the offering one more time. Can we
Babies
pay
count.
for
You're
the
like,
rental?
that girl is pregnant. We should count that as
Babies,
an extra.
yes.
Absolutely. I mean, and like to go back, like you have to know that you're called to do that. And in our transition from Illinois to plant Imagine Church, like to speak to her with her need for safety and security and to know that this isn't an emotional decision I'm making. We had very clear, like, God, we need you to speak to us. We held this secret for 6 months between the two of us that we felt God was calling us to do this. We had a room in our basement where we felt that God was calling us to it, and we knew that we were called to Florida. We prayed about the state. We felt God was calling us home to Florida. And then we were like, okay, what city is God calling us to? And we prayed, and we printed a map, and we put 3 pins on 3 cities in Florida. We put a pin on Orlando, we put a pin on Tampa, and we put a pin on Fort Lauderdale, were the 3 cities that we were praying, God, what city are you calling us to? And for 6 months, we prayed about that. Staff meeting came one day at our church, and I was holding the secret tight. And we had a guest speaker, and he was coming in and doing a consultation with the staff, and he wanted a one-on-one with me. And I took a one-on-one with this guy, and first thing he says to me is, your time at this church is coming to an end, isn't it? And I'm like, I didn't say that. My wife will kill me if she finds out that I've said this, because we don't know when this is happening. He's like, God's called you to plant a church. I'm like, okay, yeah, I believe he has done that. God's called you to plant a church in the state of Florida, hasn't he? And I was like, wow, yeah. You're right. He's like, you're praying about 3 cities. You're praying about Tampa, Fort Lauderdale, and Orlando. And I'm like, wow. He's like, God said yes. It's your time. And we were feeling that God wanted us there for 3 more years before we would go plant that church. And he said to me, you think it's 3 years. God says 3 months. Wow. He wants you to go. And so it was very clear. Like I needed a kick in the face that this is what we were supposed to do in order for my wife to have the confidence as well that we are going in this because this is what God wants us to do. So if you go plant a church, it's a lot of work. You know nothing. You are building from the ground up. So by the time we got to launch day, we had full belief that this is what God wanted us to do. We were in the right place, and it was a successful launch. Like by all metrics, it was a great launch. And then, you know, on our story, we launched September 15th, 2019. 6 months later, at our 6-month anniversary of launching the church, I got a call that Friday from the principal of the school that we were renting that due to COVID, we wouldn't be allowed back into the building. And that's kind of where the story turns.
And you had 300 people there at that point.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm actually going to pause right here because this is where I want to concentrate next. Yeah. And I'm going to ask everybody to join us back next week because we're going to talk about when we believe God calls us to something and that doesn't turn out how we expected, and then kind of what brought you here and that process, because I know that wasn't easy for the both of you. So I thank you guys for your vulnerability, and you guys tune in next week so we can follow up with their story. Thank you so much.